Should we be concerned about DJ Reader's injury? More on a Friday Locked On Lions.
You are Locked On Lions, your daily Detroit Lions podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's happening, everybody? It's Matt Derry, and it's a Friday edition of Locked On Lions right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today is Friday, June 7th, into the weekend, and Saturday, June 8th. Thanks for making us your first listen and checking us out wherever you get your podcasts. Shout out to our everydayers who are out there that either watch or listen each and every day, Monday through Friday, right here on Locked On Lions. And that includes our man, Tim Moore. Tim, I made you a promise. He said it's his birthday today. He's an everydayer. He commented, I think, on Wednesday's show on YouTube. Happy birthday, Tim, one of our everydayers here on Locked On Lions. You can follow us on Twitter at Derry Speaks, at Locked On Lions on Twitter, Matt Derry Facebook fan page. And please subscribe and watch us for free each and every day on our Locked On Lions YouTube channel. Mandatory mini camp is done. OTAs are next week, but Dan Campbell said, we just want young players at OTAs. The veterans can skip it. We just want to work with the younger guys, get the veterans off of their feet and everything else. So really, the next time the vets get on the field, the Jared Goffs and the Amon-Ra St. Browns and Taylor Deckers and guys like that will be for training camp coming up in late July. We'll talk about one veteran who has not seen the field yet for the Lions, DJ Reader, and is there a concern that he's coming back from that torn quad and he won't be ready for camp? We'll get into that coming up momentarily. Pro Football Focus put out their cornerback ratings, the top 32 corners in the league. I'll give you a hint. The two Lions did make the list. We'll discuss that coming up on the show. Are you expecting to see JJ McCarthy against the Lions this year? Don't expect it. At least that's what early on the signs are at Vikings minicamp. We'll get into that as well. And last night, Big Sean did something great. And then Big Sean did something at that giant concert down at the old train station, which is now just an unbelievable new building and edifice in Detroit. But I want to make a reference to something Big Sean said last night at his performance. We'll do that right here on a Friday edition of Locked On Lions. If you missed any of the shows this week, please go back and check them out wherever you get your podcasts. It's been a fun week, no question about it. We'll continue to bring you content regardless of if the Lions are on the field or not, as we get you closer to 2024 and the season. Dan Campbell made it a point to kind of give injury updates this week as the team went through mandatory minicamp. As far as players that have not been on the field as they come back from injuries, you've got the likes of Kevin Zeitler, Taylor Decker, Emmanuel Mosley, Brian Branch, Khalil Dorsey got hurt the other day, and it was just an ankle. Kyle Pecco, the defensive tackle, and DJ Reader. We know Mosley's not going to, Mosley tore his ACL last year. Decker's got some stuff he's dealing with. Zeitler as well. Players that kind of worked on the side, Jahmyr Gibbs, Marcus Davenport, minimal work, guys like Kirby Joseph, Coyote Owoshika, and Frank Ragnow. Terrion Arnold, who did not practice a lot during OTAs, is now back, and it's Rakestraw, James Houston, and guys like that. As far as DJ Reader is concerned, that's the biggest issue for me when we're talking about a high-impact player that signed a 2-year, $26.5 million deal and needs to be on the field. DJ Reader, if you recall, last year toward the middle of the season for the Bengals, tore his quad and was lost for the season. And it was the second time in his career that the veteran defensive tackle was lost for the season with a torn quad. He tore, I believe, the right one the first time, the left one last year. Dan Campbell talked about the fact that there's a chance that DJ Reader might not be ready for training camp at the end of July. Quote, I would anticipate everybody else to be pretty close to ready. If not, it's going to be tight. It'll be enough to where they're going to get a really good amount of training camp work, if that makes sense. He went on to say on Reader, quote, Reader would be the one who will be a decision on at what point is he ready to start practicing. But that's not something that we're caught off guard by. We knew this would take a minute here. He's just not sure if Reeder is going to be ready. And to be quite honest, he also said he's not sure Reeder is going to be ready for the start of the season as he's coming back from this torn quad. You look at the depth. First of all, DJ Reeder's a stud. He's a really good football player. If you go back and type into Google Matt Derry and Dan Horde, go back from a couple of weeks ago or even a couple of months ago when we had the voice of the Bengals, Dan Horde, on our show. And he just was absolutely lathering up DJ Reeder and loves the guy. Reeder and McNeil, and both of them have talked about this. They feel like when they're on the field, it's going to be, and this is the words they used, destructive. They're going to destroy other teams' interior offensive lines to the point where guys like Hutchinson and Pascal and Kaminsky and Davenport and Houston are going to be able to get to the quarterback from the edge. And I love that. I love that these guys are that confident they're going to be destructive. And putting them together is the best defensive line pairing this team has had in duo since probably Ndamukong Suh and Nick Fairley back in what was it, 2013, 2011, whatever it was. Those two guys played really well together. Lions haven't had anything close to that in a decade. But the Reeder injury is a concern because if they're thinking he might not be ready for camp, let alone the season, and he's not going to play in the preseason, that would be stupid. They need a healthy big number 98 on the field. Take DJ Reeder off the field. Who would play there? Levi Onwuzurike is in a contract year. Lions have said he's in great shape. He's healthy. They like what they've seen. I don't rely on Levi Onwuzurike because for the first, 3 years, I've seen very little from him. Broderick Martin has slimmed down. The third-round pick from last year that barely saw the field has apparently been working with Terrell Williams, the defensive line coach, and they feel like he's made strides. But again, not somebody we've seen at this level have any success yet. Can you move Pascal inside? He's done that. Can you move Kaminsky inside? He's done that. That's a possibility. They got Kyle Pecco from Tennessee, veteran guy. Mekhi Wingo is interesting. The 6th-round pick from LSU is somebody that could be jettisoning up the depth chart quickly if he continues to show improvement. And he's coming off an injury from last year, but he's a really good football player, and nobody thought he would be there in the 6th round. Matthew Betts is a guy that's a little bit undersized. Of course, they got from the CFL, can play both inside and outside. And as we know, Brad Holmes loves versatility and guys that can play both inside and outside on the D-line. But I want Reeder out there. Again, Dan Campbell said it's nothing to freak out about. He's not overly concerned. They said they weren't caught off guard by this. They knew it would take a second. But, unclear whether he'd be ready for the start of the season or not is a little bit concerning. And DJ Reeder is no longer 23 or 25. He's been in the league now a good chunk of time. He's over 30. So Lions need him. Lions need him badly. But if he's healthy, and so is Lee McNeil, look out. I love the tenacity, the ferocity, destructiveness, as they talked about, in the middle of that D-line. But right now, that's the one player that I would look at to say he's not anywhere close. Emmanuel Mosley is the other one, but I think the Lions have more depth right now at corner than they've ever had. And I think the Lions feel like with Carlton Davis and Amick Robertson and the 2 rookies and Brian Branch, I think they're going to be in pretty good shape. So who will step up? Will we see somebody like Broderick Martin make such strides that if they don't want to rush Reeder back for the opener against the Rams, they won't have to? Or Onwuzurike, who's, again, in the last year of his deal and has just had those back problems for 3 years. So we'll see about all of that. All right, what does PFF think of the Lions cornerbacks? We will tell you coming up next right here on Locked On Lions. And Locked On Lions brought to you by eBay Motors. Today, passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. That's ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Matt Derry back with you. It is a Friday edition of Locked On Lions right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks for making us your first listen and checking us out really wherever you get your podcasts. We appreciate everybody's participation as well, whether you're chiming in on Twitter, Facebook, or on our comment section on YouTube. Everybody's been pretty good. I don't go through the YouTube comments a ton. When I do, I appreciate everybody. Occasionally it gets a little bit out of control, but hey, that's the world we live in right now, right? Okay, so Pro Football Focus, we've gone over a lot of their rankings for positions, whether it was Jared Goff getting snubbed and being 16th in quarterbacks, or Amon-Ra St. Brown at 7 at wide receiver, Aiden Hutchinson 6 when it comes to edge rushers. We're looking today at the cornerbacks, an article written by John Kosko, Kosko, earlier this week. As far as the top corners in the game, according to PFF, number 1, Sauce Gardner from the Jets. Really no argument for me on that. Number 2, Trent McDuffie from KC. Charvarius Ward of the Niners 3rd. Pat Surtain of the Broncos 4th. Jalen Johnson of the Bears 5th. Those are your top 5 corners in the league. A little bit surprised Jair Alexander isn't in the top 5, but he was number 7 on this list. As far as the Lions go, there are 2 Detroit Lions that made the list. Number 1, Brian Branch, nickel corner. Just, I love calling him an amoeba. He can play anywhere. Safety, corner, nickel, outside, inside. Brian Branch comes in at number 13. The author Costco writes, quote, Branch made his presence known on the opening night of the 2023 season by taking an interception to the house. While they had some of the usual rookie year ups and downs, his overall play in 2023 was exceptional for a first-year player. He finished with a 77.7 coverage grade and had the 7th best season by the advanced metrics. Lions drafted themselves a steal in the 2nd round of the 2023 draft. I love that. Brian Branch being a top 15 corner after 1 year when he wasn't a first-round pick. Shout out Brad Holmes. Tip of the cap. Ms. Corningstone. That's awesome. Yes, that's a Ron Burgundy reference. Also, I look at this list and I see a second Detroit Lion corner coming in at number 22, Carlton Davis, the third at number 22. Costco writes, quote, Davis has often been tasked with tracking the opposing team's top receiver, which never results in high grades. The advanced metrics look more kindly on him, though, as he ranks 18th there over the past 2 years. Carlton Davis finishing right behind Devin Witherspoon of Seattle, who, of course, was a first-round pick last year, and Stephon Gilmore, who's still a free agent, who played last year with the Cowboys. He comes in on this list at number 23. A little bit surprised Darius Slay is 28th. His coverage grade last year from PFF slipped immensely. And the man that is Mr. Pick Six and has 14 interceptions over the last 2 years, Deron Bland of the Cowboys, who many feel is a top 10 corner in this league, finished 31st on this list. Only Joey Porter Jr. was lower. Bland was 31. As far as Carlton Davis being at 22, I didn't think PFF was going to include him in this list because his PFF grade over the last 3 years has gone down. But yet, based on advanced metrics, they have him in the top 25 at 22. So remember, this is a team a year ago that in the NFC Championship game was trotting out Cam Sutton, by the way, the newly signed by the Steelers, Cam Sutton. Wow. And Kendall Vildor, along with Brian Branch. Now you've got Carlton Davis. You got Terrion Arnold. You got Amik Robertson. You've got Ennis Rakestraw, Khalil Dorsey, Stephen Gilmore. Vildor is back. Emmanuel Mosley, if healthy, is going to get an opportunity. Lions did not bring him back for him not to play. So the team is deep there. And Davis coming in at 22 is a good sign. Because like I said, normally the PFF folks have been pretty harsh on him over the last few years. But for the Lions to have two top 22 cornerbacks is a definite upgrade. Brian Branch being at number 13, one spot behind L'Jarius Sneed, who, of course, the Chiefs shipped off to Tennessee, and the Titans picked up. I love that. I think that is that's pretty cool. So Brian Branch continues to impress. And hopefully his foot injury is nothing major. And obviously he had a little bit of a surgery. And hopefully he's ready for training camp and ready to go. Because a lot of times when we talk about the corners, we're always talking about the guys on the outside and everything else. And we're not talking about the fact that Branch can basically be put anywhere on the field as a hybrid, safety, corner, nickel. And for him to get recognized by PFF as a top 13 corner is pretty cool. So I have no beef with that list at all. And shout out to Brian Branch for continuing to make a name for himself and be somebody that impresses certainly the national folks as well. All right. Who is not impressing? Do a little segue here. Who is not impressing in Minnesota so far? How about this nugget from Kevin Seifert at ESPN.com that covers the Vikings? They just finished up their mandatory minicamp in Minnesota. And Seifert writes that rookie quarterback JJ McCarthy, of course, ex of the Michigan Wolverines, who was drafted in the first round by the Vikings. According to Seifert, quote, the rookie is squarely behind Sam Darnold on the depth chart through the first week of minicamp and one final week of OTAs in Minnesota. Seifert adds that Sam Darnold has taken, quote, nearly all of the first team reps, while McCarthy is third string, taking the reps after Nick Mullins. I didn't even know Nick Mullins was back on the Vikes. Woo! Wowzers. So Seifert pointed out that some of McCarthy's throws haven't been accurate despite having plenty of juice. Very inconsistent so far as a rookie. Now remember, JJ McCarthy, there were some, including our buddy Brett Whitefield, that thought JJ McCarthy was going to be the best quarterback coming out of this class. He did not go in the top 10. He fell down to the Vikings and Minnesota took him. He had a great career at Michigan. It wasn't good. It was great. He won a national championship. All right. There are plenty of people out there that think he's not gonna be great at the next level, and they point to the Penn State game where they didn't throw a single forward pass in the second half. I think a lot of that was due to that's the way Michigan played. But for those of you thinking that you're going to see the Lions and Vikings October 20th in Minnesota with JJ playing in week 7, I don't think that's happening. I think they're going to ride with Sam Darnold, and this could be a situation where, maybe week 18, Lions will host the Vikes and he'll be there by then. But sounds like he's not even ahead of Nick Mullins yet. Nick Mullins was the guy that handed the Lions 2 wins back in December and January this past year, throwing the ball to the other team. He also threw for like 400 yards in the games and had some decent throws. But we know with Nick Mullins, it's like 500. Remember that game you played as a kid? 300. You throw the ball up in the air. I mean, Nick Mullins is just a whirling dervish at times out there. So right now, McCarthy is not close to pushing the veteran Sam Darnold, who's on a 1-year, $10 million deal. Just has kind of been a vagabond around the league with stops in New York, the Jets, San Francisco, and now with Minnesota. But he's not even ahead of Nick Mullins right now. So that's an update within the division. on a guy like JJ McCarthy. All right. Big Sean was a part of the big celebration downtown last night. The old train station's been revamped, revitalized. And boy, Bill Ford and the Ford family did an amazing job with that building, and it's back and it's awesome. And they had a huge event last night. Big Sean said something interesting though. I got to call him out on, and we'll do that coming up next right here on Locked On Lions. All right, so last night was the big event downtown at in Detroit at the old train station, which now looks incredible, like I said. And they had Eminem out there, and they had Jelly Roll and Diana Ross, all these people that performed. It was amazing. It was a great concert. It was on Channel 4 last night. I watched it. Shout out to Marshall Mathers, Eminem, and Paul Rosenberg, who put the whole thing together and produced it. I thought it was really well done. Big Sean was also out there, local rapper, Detroit guy. And he was out there rallying the crowd and talking about Detroit and all the great things that's going on. And he's spot on. The city looks great. Downtown, this is just another building that's been redone that is going to add to, the viability of our city. And that I think is pretty cool. Big Sean was walking out there, and he was out on stage, and he was talking about revitalizing the city and all this stuff. And he said something like, man, and it all starts, with the Lions. And everybody goes crazy. And then he says something like, and the Pistons. Now remember, Big Sean is employed by the Pistons. They hired him. I forgot what his role is. It was a few years ago. He's sort of a brand ambassador for the Pistons. But he mentioned the Lions, and then he mentioned the Pistons. And it's like, okay, Sean, we get it. Like, you work for the team. Your boss for the Pistons, Arn Tellem, is out in the crowd. A bunch of people told me they saw Mr. Tellem last night. But listen, I want to make something clear. And this is not a knock on the Pistons, who have obviously been very bad for a while now. And I hope their new GM or new president of basketball, Trajan Langdon, does well. I hope he does. But there's one team in this town, one, that has ascended to the top. That is the model for all the other franchises. And when you talk about bringing the city back together and bringing fans together and bringing people downtown, people are so excited for the Lions. People aren't flocking downtown to see the baseball team right now, who is 24th in baseball in attendance. All right. The Tigers aren't bad. Tigers are above 500, or maybe they're at 500 now. The Tigers are not bad. They're also not good. The Red Wings have made the playoffs in years. And at the end of this regular season of hockey this past year, really played well, and it was fun to watch. All right. The Pistons have been terrible. So anytime you mention the Lions, I don't think you can mention the other teams in the same breath right now. What the Lions have done, going from 3 wins to 9 wins to 12 wins plus 2 playoff wins, has put them in an elite class. Sure, Michigan football is a part of that too. They won the national championship. But again, that's college. Not everybody's a Michigan fan. We're just talking about the 4 majors here. And I'm not dissing Detroit City FC or Michigan Panthers or any other teams that we have around here. All right. I think it's great, all of them. And I hope the Shock comes back. But folks, in my opinion, whether you're Big Sean giving a shout out to the Pistons because you're on the payroll or not, it's Lions here and everybody else down here. Everybody else. I mean, that's just the importance. First of all, when you have a good NFL team, it galvanizes this area. My gosh. I mean, Jared Goff's here on the Jared Goff chants everywhere he goes. Dan Campbell, to me, is the face of Detroit sports. Who isn't? Or who else is? Who's the guy that you put up on the screen somewhere and the crowd's going to go crazy for? Anybody on the Red Wings? People like the captain, Dylan Larkin. He's from here. All right. Lucas Raymond toward the end of the year was cool, but if Lucas Raymond walked down Woodward right now, would anybody know who that is? No. Just the hockey elites would. Tigers, I don't think they have anybody that is the face of the team. One of them they hoped is in Toledo. Riley Green's a really good player. Tarek Skubal is incredible. Really good pitcher. But is he somebody we're rallying around here? Pistons, I mean, Cade is the face of that team, but I don't think people are going crazy for Cade Cunningham. But Dan Campbell, oh my gosh, people are going nuts. Jared Goff, people love. Aiden Hutchinson, my gosh. But it's because they won. They've won. So when any celebrity is talking about any of the teams in town and how they've helped rally the troops, to me, it's one team and one team only. And that team right now has big expectations on them this year. There's pressure on the Lions now. There's a target on their backs. Lions have to win. They've got the roster to do it. They've got the coaching staff. They're built right now to win. It would be a disappointment if this team didn't win and win big this year. Whereas with the other teams, it's almost like, golly gee, if they can just sneak into the playoffs or be in the play-in tournament, the NBA, or, that would be such a big win. Tigers have a chance to be in a wild card this year. Again, there's 3 wild cards in the American League. I don't think they're going to win the division. They're just not good enough. But the Lions better win the division this year. That's the expectation plus. All right. Thanks for another great week of Locked On Lions. Thanks for making us your first listen, checking us out wherever you get your podcast. Don't forget, tonight, following the Tigers game, Jake Riepma will be on Locked On Detroit Sports right on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast for the postcast, as Jake does that after every Tigers game, Red Wings, Pistons, and Lions. We are back again on Monday.